Hi everyone, I'm here in the kitchen and I'm about to show you how to make an easy recipe, spaghetti. Let me show you how. Okay, so what you'll want to do first is, it's hard to do with one hand, but I'll show you anyway. So what you'll want to do first is to fill up your pot with cold water. I know some people like to use hot water because that heats up the water faster, but heating it with cold water will help the bacteria dissolve in the hot water as it heats up on the stove. Sometimes I get lost in my train of thought, so I hope you'll bear with me. But as I said, heating the cold water on the stove will help with the bacteria thing. I usually like to fill up my pot with cold water 3/4 of the way up. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the stove. I'm going to set the stove to medium heat by pushing in the control knob and then just setting it to medium heat or close to it. And then what I'm going to do is turn on the vent fan. I'm going to set it on low because even though it's on low, it'll still have plenty of power to get rid of the excess heat and the steam that goes with it. So as you can see, using my range microwave, I turned on the vent fan. There's plenty of air there. Plenty of air there. So what's going to happen is the water is going to heat up little by little. Now before we do anything else, before we leave that alone to cook, I'm going to show you something else you'll need to do. I just took out some canola oil from the fridge and I'm going to take the lid off. It's hard for me to do one-handed, but that's okay, because what I'm going to do is put a little bit of the canola oil into the pot. That way, when I put in the noodles for the spaghetti, it'll help make the noodles less sticky when I dump them out into the colander a little bit later. But the canola oil will help the water heat up. So I'm going to come back into the kitchen in about an hour or so, and we'll go from there. Stay tuned. Okay, so I have a box of spaghetti right here, and I'm going to use angel hair because that's the easiest to rip into pieces using your own two hands. But you'll have to be careful because that rips apart much too easily if you're not careful. So I'm going to try and take some of this out and rip this into pieces like so. And it all breaks apart easily, as you can tell. And I'm just going to put these pieces into the pot, into the boiling pot. As you can see, the pot's now boiling. The water's now boiling inside the pot, so I'm going to rip this into pieces, put this in the pot like so, and then just do so for the rest of the strands that you break apart. As you can see, the broken strands scatter everywhere because they break very, very easily. So I'm going to try and clean up some of those pieces, and I'll get back to you. Okay, so I believe I got most of the strands taken care of. There's always a chance that I could miss some, and it happens more often than not. But I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 10 minutes. And then I'm going to give this a good stir using my ladle. It's a good idea to stir the spaghetti every now and then, so that way the strands can cook evenly. And you'll want to do this a couple of times while the microwave's timer counts down. While we're waiting for the pasta to cook, we're going to take out some frozen mixed vegetables and add them to our meal. I figured it would be a good way to add some healthy food to the spaghetti we are about to eat. I pretty much avoided doing presentations one-handed because I need to use both hands to open frozen bags of mixed vegetables. So what I'm going to do here is, now that the bag is open, You're going to dump the package of mixed vegetables into this bowl here. You want to make sure to get them all because this bag, a 14-ounce bag, is just the thing for a bowl like this. This was given to me by my grandmother Carlson when she passed away. And you want to make sure that those vegetables are spread out evenly, just like the pasta. And we're going to cover this up and put them in the microwave. I'm going to set the cook time for 11 minutes, because that's usually the proper amount of time to not only defrost the vegetables, but heat them up as well. And while we're doing that, we're going to give the spaghetti another good stir. That way all the noodles can still get the proper amount of heat they need. And as the noodles heat up, they will soften more and more. See, they're already starting to get softer now. Okay, so the time just ran out on the microwave's timer, so I'm going to go ahead and stop that. And I'm going to turn off the stove and give the spaghetti one final stir. Before I drain out the water. So what you want to do is take your hot pot from the stove while putting on your oven mitts, because you don't want your hands to get burned. So what you want to do next is put on your oven mitts, take the pot, and dump the water. I try not to dump all of the noodles out while dumping the water out. So you'll want to try avoiding dumping all the noodles out if you can. If you do, it's not a huge deal, because you can just pour them into the pot after you drain the water. And I'm not gonna do that one-handed because it's too dangerous. So I'll get back to you in just a second. So as you can see, the colander's holes there allow the water to drain without losing the noodles. So you'll probably see my oven mitts from time to time, so I'm gonna try and not cover up the speaker. So I'm gonna go ahead and dump these noodles back into the pot, which is still hot, by the way. And even if some noodles tend to get stuck in there, the canola oil you added earlier should help keep the noodles from sticking to the pot or the colander. And I'm going to trying to do this one-handed is a bit difficult, but I'll get back to you in just a second. Now the next thing you'll want to do is open up your container of tomato sauce. As I was saying, I just opened up a container of tomato sauce, and I opened it because I'm not going to try and do everything one-handed. So once that's done, you can just pour the contents into the pot where the spaghetti is. You want to try and get as much out of the container as you can before rinsing it out. That is, if your city allows those containers to be recyclable. You'll want to check the label and the number on that container before doing so. So we have about 26 seconds left on the microwave, so while that's going on, I'm going to go ahead and use my ladle. Sometimes I get the B's confused with the D's. But this is a ladle, not a label. And I'm going to go ahead and stir the spaghetti sauce. And I'm going to just focus this on the timer while I do that, since the time is just about to run out here. And I'm going to keep the vent fan on, so that way the excess heat can be filtered out. And I'm going to try not to stir this one-handed, because the pot tends to lose its balance if you don't keep a hand on it. So I'm going to go ahead and keep on stirring this, and then I'll get back to you in just a second. Okay, now that we got that straightened out, we can go ahead and take our vegetables out of the microwave, using our oven mitts to take the bowl out. You don't want to get your hands burned. Now our bowl's out of the microwave, so now we have some mixed vegetables and a fresh pot of hot spaghetti. Try to say that 3 times fast. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the vent fan so you can hear me a little better. Alright, so now we have, as I said, a fresh hot pot of spaghetti. Fresh hot pot of spaghetti. Say that. It's a tongue twister. So while the clocks chime, I'm going to go ahead and put some vegetables on my plate first. I usually like to eat the vegetables first, because I believe it's healthier for me, and I usually save the best tasting spaghetti for last. I always used to save the tastiest food for last. Like when I had mac and cheese, broccoli, and tuna fish, I would save the mac and cheese for last, even though I ate the broccoli and tuna fish first. It allows me to savor that part of the meal. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and serve the spaghetti. I think I'll just put this on the stove for the time being while I serve some spaghetti on the plate. I know this isn't usually ideal, but having said that, it would save me a lot of trouble without having to make a mess of everything. Okay, that should be enough spaghetti to get me started, at least. And one thing I like to add on my spaghetti sometimes is some basil, which I just took out of my garden. It's always a good idea to harvest one little bit at a time, so I'm going to wash it first, and then cut it up. And again, I won't do this with one hand because it's way too dangerous for me to risk slicing my fingers open. So I'm going to get back to you in just a moment. Okay, so the basil's been sliced. As you can see, I used one of my knives to slice it. So I'm going to go ahead and try and evenly spread the basil over my spaghetti. The basil adds flavor to the taste of the spaghetti. It adds to the Italian flavor. You usually see basil in spaghetti in some restaurants, like I used to see at the Spaghetti Works. Another thing I usually like to add on my spaghetti, to top it off actually, is the Parmesan cheese. You can get something like this at your local grocery store. So I'm going to spray some of this on with the ladle, hopefully without the ladle getting in the way. Alright, so now we have our mixed vegetables, we have our spaghetti with the basil on it, and the Parmesan cheese on top. If you open up a new container of Parmesan cheese, and after you use it, you'll want to make sure to put it in the refrigerator. Last but not least, you're going to want to add some milk to your meal. And I'm going to do this slowly to avoid making a mess while pouring it with one hand. It's not easy to do everything with just one hand while I'm using an electronic device to record stuff. And there you have it. You now have a delicious meal of spaghetti, mixed vegetables, and a glass of milk. I hope you enjoyed this special presentation, and I look forward to teaching you how to cook something else in the future. Enjoy your meal.